The young and the restless spoilers shock the awakening of Connor. Connor sat in his dimly lit room, the air thick with despair. His body was frail, his face pale, and his eyes red from countless nights of crying. His illness wasn't just physical, it was as if it had taken over his mind, dragging him into a pit of negativity and hopelessness. Every day felt heavier than the last, and the weight of his existence bore down not just on him but on his family as well. He saw it in their eyes, the forced smiles, the too cheerful words, the relentless optimism they tried to exude. It only made Connor feel worse. Why did they even bother pretending, he thought bitterly, tears streaming down his cheeks. I'm a burden. They'd be better off without me. His mother's voice rang out from the kitchen, overly chipper. Connor, sweetheart. Dinner's ready. He didn't answer. Instead, he buried his face in his hands, wishing the world would just forget about him. A radical proposal. Jordan, Connor's childhood friend, watched this decline with increasing frustration. He had always been the pragmatic one, the kind of person who believed in taking action rather than wallowing in despair. Connor's condition, both physical and emotional, made him restless. But what truly set Jordan's mind spinning was the thought of what Connor could become if only he could be shaken out of his current state. One night, after watching Connor crumble into tears yet again, Jordan turned to his sister, Emily, who was equally worried. I can't watch him like this anymore, he said firmly. This isn't living. It's just existing. Emily sighed, her voice laced with exhaustion. What can we do, Jordan? He's sick. He needs care, love, he needs purpose, Jordan interrupted, his eyes lighting up with an idea. Something that will pull him out of this darkness. Something so intense he won't have time to dwell on his pain. Emily raised an eyebrow. And what do you suggest? Therapy? A retreat? Something gentle? No, Jordan leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We turn him into something stronger. Something unstoppable. We make him a fighter. A weapon. Emily's face twisted in horror. What are you talking about? He's ill, Jordan, not a soldier. Exactly, Jordan countered. He's weak because he believes he's weak. We need to show him that he can be more. And I know exactly the person who can help. Enter Ian Ward. Ian Ward was a name whispered in shadowy circles. A retired operative with a history shrouded in mystery, he was both feared and revered. His methods were unorthodox, his reputation brutal. But Jordan had heard enough about him to believe that if anyone could reshape Connor, it was Ian. Jordan approached Connor with the idea one evening, couching it in a way that piqued his friend's curiosity rather than alarmed him. Connor, Jordan began, his tone calm but insistent, what if there was a way out of this? A way to feel alive again? To stop being the person you are now and become someone powerful? Connor scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Sure, Jordan. Let me just pop a magic pill and become Superman. I'm serious, Jordan said, leaning forward. There's someone who can help you. Someone who can teach you how to fight, not just physically, but mentally. He can help you find a reason to keep going. Connor hesitated. For the first time in weeks, something flickered in his eyes. Who? The first step. It didn't take much convincing for Connor to agree to meet Ian. His curiosity outweighed his skepticism, and deep down, a part of him craved change. Ian Ward lived in a secluded cabin on the outskirts of town, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow the light. When they arrived, Ian was waiting, his presence as intimidating as the stories had suggested. Connor, Ian said, his voice gravelly, Jordan's told me about you. Said you're looking for a way out of your misery. Let me be clear. I'm not here to coddle you. If you're serious, you'll follow my rules, no questions asked. If not, leave now. Connor swallowed hard, glancing at Jordan, who nodded encouragingly. I'm serious, he said, his voice trembling. Ian smirked. Good. Then let's begin. The days that followed were grueling. Ian pushed Connor to his limits, physically and mentally. The first task was breaking through Connor's self-pity, a monumental challenge. Ian's methods were harsh, often bordering on cruel, but they were effective. He forced Connor to confront his fears, his insecurities, and his pain. "Your illness doesn't define you," Ian barked one day as Connor collapsed during a training session. "What defines you is what you do despite it." At first, Connor resented Ian. But over time, he began to see the changes within himself. His body grew stronger, his reflexes sharper. More importantly, his mind began to clear. The weight of his illness didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled him. For the first time in years, he felt alive. A new purpose under Ian's guidance, Connor transformed. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was thriving. The boy who once saw himself as a burden now carried himself with confidence and purpose. But with this transformation came new challenges. Ian's training wasn't just about survival, it was about preparation for a world that was darker and more dangerous than Connor had ever imagined. One evening, Ian sat Connor down. "You've come far," he said, his tone uncharacteristically gentle. "But this path you're on, it doesn't end with just feeling better. You're being shaped for something greater. Are you ready for that?" Connor nodded, his voice steady. "I am." The road ahead. Connor's journey was far from over. He had found strength within himself that he never knew existed, but the world Ian had introduced him to was one of shadows and moral ambiguity. As Connor prepared to take his first steps into this new reality, he couldn't help but feel a spark of something he hadn't felt in years: hope. For the first time, he wasn't defined by his illness or his past. He was Connor, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Connor's new path, breaking free from the shadows of Adam and Chelsea. Connor Newman, once a boy weighed down by the burdens of illness and a fractured home, found himself at a crossroads. His life with Adam and Chelsea had become a tangled web of deceit and emotional manipulation, and it was taking a toll on him. Their attempts to feign happiness only deepened his despair, creating a toxic environment where truth and sincerity were replaced by pretenses. Connor, now a teenager, was no longer the naive child who accepted things as they were. He had begun to think for himself, to question the influences around him, and to yearn for something better, something more authentic. It was Jordan who recognized this spark of independence in Connor. Unlike Adam and Chelsea, Jordan saw an opportunity to mold Connor into something extraordinary. He envisioned a version of Connor that was untethered from the baggage of his past, free to become a person of strength, intelligence, and calculated resolve. For Jordan, Connor wasn't just a boy in need of guidance, he was a project, a chance to create a successor to Adam, but one who was sharper, colder, and more deliberate. Breaking away the decision to remove Connor from Adam and Chelsea's influence wasn't easy. Chelsea, in particular, clung to the idea that their family could somehow be mended, even as the cracks widened with every passing day. But Connor, tired of their hollow reassurances and emotional games, made the decision himself. "I can't stay here anymore," Connor said one evening, his voice firm despite the lump in his throat. "It's too much. I need to figure out who I am, and I can't do that here." Adam, ever the pragmatist, saw the logic in Connor's words but struggled to let go. Chelsea, however, was devastated. "Connor, you don't understand," she pleaded. "We're trying to protect you, to give you the family you deserve." "No," Connor replied, his tone sharper than they'd ever heard. "You're trying to protect yourselves from the truth. I'm done pretending." Jordan's vision. Jordan stepped in as a guardian, though his motives were far from altruistic. For Jordan, Connor's departure from his parents was a necessary step in reshaping him into the person he could become. He didn't see himself merely as a caretaker, he was a mentor, a craftsman molding Connor into a new Adam, one who would be smarter, more capable, and less burdened by sentimentality. Jordan's approach was drastically different from the coddling Connor had experienced with his parents. He pushed Connor to confront the realities of the world, teaching him that strength came not from relying on others but from mastering himself. "Your father," Jordan said one day during one of their intense conversations, "is brilliant, but his weakness is his heart. He lets it control him, and that's why he always falls short. If you want to surpass him, you have to learn to think without letting emotions cloud your judgment." Connor listened intently, absorbing Jordan's words like a sponge. He had spent so much of his life feeling powerless, and now, for the first time, he felt as though he was being given the tools to take control. The new family dynamic living with Jordan was nothing like living with Adam and Chelsea. There were no empty reassurances, no attempts to shield Connor from the harshness of life. Instead, Jordan treated him like an equal, challenging him to rise to the occasion at every turn. Their dynamic wasn't built on traditional affection but on mutual respect and a shared goal, to make Connor into the best version of himself. Jordan encouraged Connor to embrace his intelligence, to hone his strategic thinking, and to develop a ruthlessness that would serve him in any situation. He introduced Connor to the art of manipulation, teaching him how to read people and use their weaknesses to his advantage. But Jordan wasn't just interested in creating a mirror image of Adam. He wanted Connor to surpass him, to be smarter, more cunning, and ultimately more successful. "You're not just a boy anymore, Connor," Jordan said one evening as they sat in the study. "You're a man in the making. And men like us, as men who understand how the world really works, we don't wait for things to come to us. We take what we want." Connor's transformation. As the months passed, Connor began to change. He grew more confident, more self-assured. The boy who once cried himself to sleep over the weight of his illness and his family's dysfunction was gone. In his place was a young man who was learning to navigate the complexities of life with a keen mind and a sharp edge. But with this transformation came a darker side. Connor's growing intelligence and cunning made him aware of just how flawed the world around him was, and he began to see people as tools rather than companions. He respected Jordan for his honesty and mentorship, but he also started to understand that Jordan's motives weren't entirely selfless. One night, as they discussed strategy over a chessboard, Connor made a move that caught Jordan off guard. "Checkmate," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. Jordan raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You're learning." "I'm not just learning," Connor replied. "I'm watching. And one day, I'll be the one teaching." A new legacy. Connor's departure from Adam and Chelsea's home marked the beginning of a new chapter, one in which he was no longer defined by his illness or his family's dysfunction. Under Jordan's guidance, he was becoming something entirely different, a force to be reckoned with. But the question remained, as Connor grew into the person Jordan envisioned, would he retain any of the humanity that once made him vulnerable? Or would he fully embrace the cold, calculated persona that Jordan was shaping him into? One thing was certain, Connor's story was far from over. With his newfound strength and independence, he was poised to carve out a path that was uniquely his own, one that would challenge the legacies of both Adam and Jordan, and perhaps surpass them both.